Mars, yet I'm stuck in the studio with a bunch of dummies helping them set their fantasy football lineups. That's why I'm so glad you're here. I finally have a peer that's as smart as me and I can relate to. In addition to being the most helpful droid in the galaxy, you, my friend, are hilarious. Wait, please don't go. Don't leave me alone with these guys.
The Fantasy Show is presented by E-Trade. And now, your host, Matthew Berry!
Thank you, Jeff the Fish. We are the Not Ready for E1 players. Coming up in the next 30 minutes, we're going to make you a smarter fantasy football player and a much dumber person. Today on the show, hey, it's Love Hate Day. We've got that for you. Plus, Field Yates stops by for a new segment we like to call Matthew Berry Finally Answers Some Tweets. Plus, we've got some running backs you need to have in your lineup. But first, you can scroll today's show will be...
The 77th best show we've done, apparently.
I'll buy that. I've seen the rundown.
Yeah.
In the classic Christmas movie Die Hard, Detective John McClane tries to save Nakatomi Plaza and all those inside it from a madman bent on robbing the building's vault of $640 million in bearer bonds. He is aided in his efforts by LAPD Sergeant Al Powell, whose attention he gets by dropping a corpse onto his car from 50 stories up. You know, Christmas stuff. I mentioned Die Hard because of this. One, it's the holiday season. I'm in a festive, corpse-dropping mood. And two, this year's LA Rams, basically the plot of Die Hard, right? They're set in Los Angeles. They have a lot of overlooked underdogs like McClane and Powell. We're making big things happen. And you no doubt had to drop some of your fantasy team's corpses in order to add Rams to your lineup.
Yeah, I gotta say, that seems like a bit of a stretch there, Barry, but at least it gave me a chance to pop up and say, drop the corpse.
Look, it's totally a stretch, Strawman. I just wanted to make the point on national television that Die Hard is a Christmas movie, okay? In fact, it's one of the greatest Christmas movies of all time. Don't at me. Anyway, back to the Rams, right? This week they're getting Robert Woods back, who had put up 6 consecutive games with double-digit fantasy points before injuring his shoulder in Week 11. Adding Robert Woods to the NFL's second highest scoring offense? Yeah, the Rams will happily take that. But I'm not huge on Woods this week or on him getting back to the level of fantasy production he had before. Look, Sammy Watkins has become a bigger part of the offense while Woods has been out. Watkins, 20 targets and 3 touchdowns in the 3 weeks without Woods in the lineup. Same story with my little Cooper Kupp. He has 24 targets over the last 3 weeks, the most he's had over any 3-week period this season. In games Robert Woods played this year, there were 8 different instances of a Rams wide receiver having 15 fantasy points in a game, right? Woods had 4 of them. My little Cooper Kupp had 3. Sammy Watkins had 1. A little all over the place. Now, I have Woods ranked the highest of all the Rams pass catchers, but because it's his first week back, there's going to be more distribution among all the pass catchers. He's merely a mid-tier wide receiver 3 for me this week. Look, there's definite upside, but there's also uncertainty, which in Week 15, bad for fantasy football. But when it comes to regular football, getting Woods back probably has Rams fans saying, yippee-ki-yay, mother...
Mom! He meant yippee-ki-yay, Mom. Merry Christmas, Mom. Love you.
Right. Yes. Yippee-ki-yay, Mom. Adrian Peterson has had an up-and-down season, right? Looked like his career was over in New Orleans. Then he has 2 huge games with the Cardinals. Then 3 kind of games. Now it looks like he might be out for the season with a neck injury. So what should you do with your fantasy team?
Ask Kerwin Williams.
I will, Daniel. And he will no doubt tell me that he, Kerwin Williams, will get the bulk of the carries for Arizona this week. Peterson out once again. Williams has 170 rushing yards and 36 carries over just the last 2 weeks. And this Sunday, he gets to face a Washington defense that is allowing 4.4 yards per carry. That's 6th worst in the NFL. So how will Kerwin Williams do this week?
Ask Kerwin Williams.
I said I will, Daniel. All right. I will also pick him up if he's still available in any of my leagues. And by the way, he is available in 75% of leagues. I currently have him ranked as my number 25 running back this Sunday, which makes him a viable flex option. Since week 6, the lead running back for Arizona has gotten 89% of running back carries for the team. And since week 8, the Redskins have given up the 8th most fantasy points to opposing running backs. So I am really telling you to play Kerwin Williams in the fantasy playoffs. Am I really doing that?
Ask Kerwin Buzz!
I tried, but it went to voicemail. But yes, I'm telling you to consider playing Kerwin Williams in the fantasy playoffs. Alvin Kamara has been cleared to return to action this week, and now for the insightful fantasy analysis you tune into this TV show to receive. All right, you ready? You should start Alvin Kamara this week if you have him on your roster. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. Up in the balcony, I see you. All right. All right, listen. That's right. I'm telling you to play the number 3 running back on the season. Now for some running backs I love this week who might be slightly more off the radar than Alvin Kamara. How about Jordan Howard of the Bears? He's been up and down, but he's going against Detroit this week since week 6. The Lions, allowing the 3rd most running back points per game, and Detroit, 30th against the run over the last 4 weeks. Plus, in 3 career games against them, Howard averaging over 6 yards per carry. Jordan Howard is a top 10 play for me this week. How about Devontae Freeman? You know, he got his biggest workload of the season last week, and now on extra days rest, he faces a Tampa Bay team that has allowed multiple running back rushing touchdowns in 3 straight games. When Atlanta played the Bucs in week 12, their rushing attack went for 132 yards and 2 touchdowns, and that was without Freeman in the lineup. Devontae Freeman, I'm not worried about Tevin Coleman. He's another top 10 play for me this week. And finally, Alex Collins of the Ravens. Did you know since week 5, he's the 5th best running back in fantasy? And now Collins is going to get to face a Cleveland defense that has allowed the 7th most running back fantasy points per game since week 8. Collins, also a top 10 play for me this week. So there you go. Some of the running backs I love for week 15. You're welcome, America. Tonight is the final Thursday night game of the season, Broncos-Colts, which means the Thursday night slate going out with a... Daniel, what's the opposite of a bang?
Hold on. I think I have something here, and yeah, this is it.
Yeah, that's about right. Stay classy, fantasy show. All right, Broncos-Colts. Might not get you super excited, but as always, I say fantasy makes every game relevant, right? Of all the players in action tonight, I actually like Jack Doyle the best. 85 targets on the year. That's tied for the 4th most among tight ends. And I think he's going to get a lot because Denver's cornerbacks, they lock down those Colts receivers, right? Denver giving up the 5th most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. Player I'm not crazy about tonight, kind of already gave it away. T.Y. Hilton. I don't even have him as a top 40 wide receiver this week. Last 8 games, Hilton, 19 for 345 and 3 touchdowns, and over half of those yards came in week 9 against the Texans. He hasn't been great this year. Now with a short week matchup against a Broncos defense that has yet to allow a 100-yard receiver this year, just can't see using him. But that's my take on it, Secret Squirrel. I turn to you. Colts, Broncos, anything stand out for you tonight?
Is no an okay answer?
It is indeed.
I would say Jack Doyle, which you already mentioned.
Yes, sir.
And I guess Demaryius Thomas.
Right.
Outside of that, no.
Yeah, you got nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I think you start Demaryius Thomas. I think you'd have to look elsewhere. The only question is Gore. You know what I mean? He gets such usage, but he was such heavy usage the week before.
Right.
And now he's going against Denver. He's a risky flex play to me. Coming up after some words from our sponsors, who we love, our show will be back, which some people might hate. That's right, we're talking Star Wars.
Love.
Love.
Love it.
Really love.
I love Star Wars. Huge Star Wars fan. If you don't like Star Wars, we're probably not friends.
Adults dressing like a Star Wars character to see the movie.
I like wearing football jerseys, so I can't say anything. We'll go love there.
Hate it. I love it.
Hate it.
Wearing a grown man's jersey, less cool. Wearing Star Wars stuff, more cool.
R2-D2.
Oh, my inner me. I love R2-D2. I mean, he's so cute, right?
Love R2-D2.
Love it. Love R2-D2.
Love.
Love.
Oh, love.
C-3PO.
I sort of love C-3PO.
Love.
I hate too much complaining.
Love it.
I love him too, even though he's totally annoying.
BB-8.
Oh, big BB-8 fan.
I love you, te amo. Love.
Hate, because I'm old school.
Jedis.
I want to be one.
Love the Jedi.
Love it. I love the Jedi.
Also love.
Love.
Love the Jedi, too. They seem like a good warrior tribe.
The Dark Side.
Hate.
You gotta have both sides, like a football game, right? You got bad and good. Love it.
Hate.
Kind of love it.
Love.
I actually kind of love the dark side, too.
I don't love the dark side, but there are times that I love the dark side.
Way to waffle, Secret Squirrel.
I appreciate that. All right, here we are, Week 15 Love Hate Wide Receiver Edition. First one up, Jordy Nelson. No one in Green Bay is happier to have Aaron Rodgers back than Jordy. So do you have him this week as a love or as a hate?
Yeah, you had me at Aaron Rodgers. You think about what he does on a per-game basis with Aaron Rodgers under center over the last 5 years. 6 receptions a game, almost 88 receiving yards a game, almost a touchdown per game. Listen, it averages out to be over 19 fantasy points per game with Aaron Rodgers over a 41-game sample size. That would make him wide receiver 3 this season, behind only Antonio Brown and DeAndre Hopkins. Panthers, 29th against the pass over the last 4 weeks. He's a top 20 wide receiver for me this week. Who's next?
Next up, Tyreek Hill, tied for wide receiver 6 on the season, but he's had some ups and downs this year. So is he a love or is he a hate?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be a top 6 guy today or this week, so that's why he makes the hate list. It's all about the matchup with the Chargers, right? Their defense, top 5 in the NFL in terms of completion percentage and yards per attempt allowed, at least 20 yards downfield. We know how Hill relies on those big plays. Well, the Chargers have had only 13 plays in which they've allowed at least 15 yards after the catch. That's second fewest in the league. Chargers have allowed a total of 2 touchdowns of at least 30 yards this year. That's tied for 4th fewest in the league. Bottom line, the Bolts defense and their corners are really, really good. Tyreek Hill, more of a low-end wide receiver 2 for me than the wide receiver 1 he's been earlier this year.
All right,
Who's
next
next?
up, Chris Hogan had 1 catch for 1 yard in his first week back. Do you see him bouncing back this week? Is he a love or is he a hate?
Believe it or not, Hogan makes the love list. Again, it's all about expectations. And so, yes, I know Hogan hasn't played since week 8. But you know what? He played 89% of his snaps in his first game back from that shoulder injury. And at the time Hogan was injured in week 8, right, he was a top 10 wide receiver in terms of total points. He was wide receiver 19 in terms of fantasy points per game. At least 5 targets in 8 of the 9 games he played this year, including last week at Miami. He almost had a touchdown if he could have got that second foot in. I expect smoother sailing ahead for Chris Hogan in what should be a shootout against the Steelers. He's on the love list. Who's next?
All right, last one, Deshaun Jackson taking on the Falcons this week on Monday Night Football here on ESPN. I am a company man. Love or hate, Matthew?
Yeah, unfortunately, Deshaun Jackson makes the hate list. Just for whatever reason, hasn't clicked downfield with Jameis Winston at all. Winston 0 for 9 with an interception when targeting Jackson at least 30 yards downfield from the season. I mean, and that's his game, right? From 2008 to 16, Deshaun Jackson had 15 more of those catches, had 15 more catches like that than anyone else in the NFL. Then you think about the Falcons defense, right? They've allowed just 1 touchdown of at least 30 yards this season. That's fewest in the NFL. Only the Bills have allowed fewer completions to gain at least 30 yards than Atlanta. Deshaun Jackson should be on your bench this week. Too risky for me. Coming up, I will know this, right? When your fantasy team is in the playoffs, one decision can be the difference between victory and the end of your season. So don't make a move without checking with IBM Watson first. Find the insights, master the risks and rewards. It's fantasy football with Watson. Thank you, me. Time for Make Me Smarter, informed by Watson. Now, while the NFL world waits on Sunday's big Pittsburgh, IBM's Watson doesn't have chances for big games from either big stars. Steelers wideout Antonio Brown, his quarterback Tom Brady, both appear on this list of players most likely to bust. 15, as does Patriots kicker Stephen Gostkowski. My tag team partner Field Yates is here, so Tom Brady coming off 2 games that weren't particularly great. You buying what Watson is selling here?
Listen, I understand the sentiment, and perhaps this is a good Pittsburgh defense relative to other defenses he has faced, but I'm still starting Tom Brady with great confidence. I moved him down this week in my rankings to number 2 amongst quarterbacks.
I am at 2 as well, and obviously you're starting Antonio Brown. Well, you and I are at the Social Monitor. That must mean it's time for our newest segment.
Matthew Berry finally responds to some tweets.
That is right, Field Yates. You and I both get a lot of questions on Twitter.
Just a couple.
Sometimes it just
million.
becomes overwhelming, and we can't always get to all of them. So you and I spent some time before the show, and we sort of dug through the archives, if you will, to see if we could come up and answer some tweets. So let's start with this one. I was able to claim Andrew Luck off the waiver wire in both my leagues. Is there something I'm missing besides his injury? That, of course, is from September. No, I think that's pretty much it. It's the injury.
Yeah,
that's
you've
what
covered most of the ground. So September 2nd, that was what? That was like a Monday?
Yeah, I think so.
Before Labor Day?
So let's see. Here's another one from September. Please help. Should I trade Leonard Fournette for Odell Beckham Jr.? No. No, do not. Hang on to Fournette.
I think I'd go with Fournette as well.
So
just my 2 cents.
There you go. We are 2 for 2. We're just crushing it here. All right. So here's one that's a little bit more recent. Tony writes in.
Relevant, yeah.
I see Matthew has Bortles higher than Cousins in his rankings. Field has them 2 spots apart. Would you really start Bortles over Cousins? I lost Wentz, so I need to choose between these 2 as replacement Field.
Listen, I get the sentiment for Blake Bortles over 16 points in 6 of his last 7 games. I've got Kirk Cousins there just because I think if there is a team that's going to have to throw it no matter what in the game, it's Kirk Cousins. Larger sample size of him as a better and more fantasy-relevant quarterback this season.
Yeah, Bortles is QB5 over the last 3 weeks here. Cousins has had back-to-back games, basically, 10 points or whatever. He hasn't been particularly great. That offensive line has struggled. Arizona's playing pretty well.
Yeah.
So it's honestly, it's a pick 'em. I get the confidence level. It depends on what kind of player you are. If you don't mind rolling the dice a little bit, being a little risky, I have Bortles higher. But I certainly wouldn't look at you sideways if you decide to go with Cousins, who's obviously more of a proven commodity this year.
Plays for the Redskins, too.
That's true. All right, so Steven writes in, need a ruling, please. Non-playoff team used waiver wire to pick up Aaron Rodgers. My selection, fair or foul? Thank you. I promise not to listen to the podcast, but download it. So that is someone from 06010 Nation.
Right.
Field, where are you on this issue?
If there's some incentive for the teams that aren't in the playoffs to continue to score a lot of points, perhaps you have a consolation bracket or a consolation prize, totally fair. Otherwise, I think it's like, what's the point there? Like, you're just stripping away the fun from the teams that are still in the mix. So it just depends on if you have that line, fine.
Right, but I blame the commissioner here. You need to have a strong rule about this. By the way, it can be anything from, I just don't want to finish last. Or maybe there's a punishment for last place. The guy doesn't want to do it. I actually don't have an issue with it. For me, there should be a rule about what non-playoff teams can do in the waivers. But as long as there's no rule, I like a guy, hey, I want to keep winning. I want to keep trying. Like, I like guys that are as active, men and women, that are as active as long as they can be through the fantasy season.
Always have incentive for all 17 weeks.
Absolutely. So Mark writes in, Big Ben or Aaron Rodgers, Field. If only you and I put a bunch of players on a list that they could consult.
Let's say the rankings certainly would help in this one. By the way, Dutch?
Yeah, maybe.
I digress.
Yes, fair enough.
I would say this. This is a true pick 'em. Like, I understand if you waited this long to play Aaron Rodgers or you grabbed him on waivers this week, why you'd be enticed to play him. I've got him one spot ahead of Ben Roethlisberger. Ben Roethlisberger's been red hot of late. He's been the best quarterback in fantasy, it feels like, for the past 2 weeks. But Aaron Rodgers is Aaron, you know
Rodgers.
what? Rodgers.
Yeah.
Like, I think this is a guy that you play him out there almost every single week. Is there some risk? Of course. But Aaron Rodgers, always a good bet.
Here's the great news. I don't think you can mess this up. You know, I have Ben at 3. I have Rodgers at 4. For me, just Roethlisberger in the last 4 home games, 345 passing yards, 12 touchdowns. He's averaging over 26 fantasy points a game. Our friends in Vegas have this as the highest scoring game of the week. To me, I think you want as much of this game as you can get. You never know, obviously, but yeah, give me Big Ben at home. All right, so Brian writes in, Dear Mr. Roto and Son.
Nice.
I think I'm Mr. Roto. All I want for Christmas is to know if I should flex Hopkins versus Jacksonville with Couch QB Yates, your cousin, or Drake versus Buffalo in my 1-point PPR conference championship game. So it's Kenyon Drake or DeAndre Hopkins for a flex.
Yeah, nice options there. I say, seriously.
Pretty stacked team, yeah.
I would go with DeAndre Hopkins still. Even since that Deshaun Watson injury, he's averaging nearly 22 fantasy points per game, a top 3 wide receiver throughout the season. To me, DeAndre Hopkins is in every single lineup in which he's on a roster.
153 targets on the season. Like, you know, there's such a floor high. And to your point, he's produced even without Deshaun Watson. Had a good game against Jacksonville earlier in the year. We saw Antonio Brown have a big game against them. I get it. They're Jacksonville, but target share and his talent are so good. DeAndre Hopkins is matchup proof. Let's move on now. New email, tweet, I should say. PPR League, I need to start too. Robbie Anderson, Carlos Hyde, Cooper Kupp, my little Cooper Kupp, Sterling Shepard. It's my birthday, so your advice would be great. So happy birthday there.
Happy birthday, yeah.
So I'm going to go with Carlos Hyde. Just the guaranteed touches. Jimmy Garoppolo really elevating that offense.
Sure.
And Robbie Anderson, even with Bryce Petty under center.
Right.
You think about the New Orleans Saints, and they've been up and down defensively, but I think you can see some junk time scoring here on the turf in New Orleans. They're going to take shots to Robbie Anderson. I'm nervous about a little Cooper Kupp with Robert Woods coming back.
I think we both agree on Carlos Hyde pretty easy there. I think we also agree that Sterling Shepard not in this mix. I'll go with Cooper Kupp, though. A little bit nervous about that game in New Orleans getting out of hand. You're right. The possibility for junk time is legit. At the same time, Bryce Petty, that inspires very little confidence from me, no matter who the pass catchers are.
Fair enough. We move to the end of the segment. So thank you very much, Field Yates. You know what that means. It's time for Make History, presented by Jim Beam. Antonio Brown clinched his 5th season with at least 300 fan points this year. There are only 4 players who have had more 300-point seasons than Antonio Brown. And it basically is the fantasy Rushmore, right? Jerry Rice, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, LaDainian Tomlinson. Oh, by the way, Antonio Brown only 29 years old.